Good evening, everyone. Calling this meeting to order. This is a special board meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Canandaigua Independent School District. Today is July 15th, 2021. Wow, after you're done. The time is 5:36. And Sonia, would you please call roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Coronado.
Here.
Mr. Hernandez.
Here.
Mrs. Mendoza.
I think Mrs.
Oh,
Mendoza.
sorry about that. Patsy did call in. She is out of town on her way in, and she might, but probably will not make it to the meeting, so.
Thank you. Mr. Bayan.
Here.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Present.
Mrs. Searles.
Here.
And Mrs. Trout.
Present.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us to next agenda item.
Yes, sir. Item 1C, trustee ethical guidelines.
Dr. D.
Here we go. Ethical guidelines, as you can see in the backboard, the PIO and ethics over there, we're going to strategize and making sure we all understand the 6 ethical guidelines that should be guiding all of us, including go 5.3. 5.3.
Bingo.
Ms. Searles, trustworthiness and stewardship. Can you read, please, 5.3?
I'd happily read it. I will work to ensure prudent and accountable use of district resources.
What does that mean to you, Ms. Searles?
You know, Dr. Galavis, that's why I read the warrant list every month. Because I will work to see that we have prudent and accountable use of our resources and do my best to make sure that we as the fiduciary agents of the district know what is going on financially, approve of that, and think that it's the best thing for our entire community. That's why they call us trustees. We are holding in trust their children, finances, taxes, and our facility, that we are in trust. So I guess that's the big takeaway to me is trustworthy stewardship.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Trout?
A little bit headache, but I'm going to try to do my best. I don't feel so good today. I'm sorry. I'm going to be a little bit quiet. Definitely the prudent and accountable we need to be as a trustees. We have an obligation. We've been chosen and voted by our community. We need to be transparent with our community. Our obligation as a trustees is to be accountable. And we have the obligation to oversee all the taxes that we collect. So definitely, we need to respond to our community the best that we can, with the best knowledge, and of course, to use our resources wisely. Thank you.
Ms. Trout? Anything else?
In regards to the structures and systems that we've set up in place, that's stewardship. In regards to the audit department and how it operates, we were one of the small school districts that actually set up that department correctly, and as we've been able to see, there's checks and balances, and being able to look at ways to better look at efficiencies and best practices, so that way we can bring to the district so that we're stewards of the taxpayers' money.
Anybody else? All right. You know, one of the things that I see that, and we're up here to see the big picture, and when I think about prudent and accountable use of district resources, I think about what our students at the end, when they leave us, have gotten out of what we've provided them. To me, that's the ultimate accountability. And I think that because of the way the state has run us in terms of their accountability, I think it's a farce. And I think we need to do a lot better job to that end, Dr. Galvez and I have powwowed, and I know I've mentioned this before, and we are going to have a workshop or whatever you want to call it with the board, schedule it sometime next month. After school, obviously not right when school is open, but within a few weeks afterwards. And I really think that we need to dig deep to see what it is that we really want to provide to our kids. And that's the ultimate, I think, accountability, because right now, I don't think we're doing such a hot job. I don't think the rest of the state is. And we're wasting a lot of people's time. And I, for one, don't like the state, and we've talked about this, the state has a new goal, right? 60 by 30. And yet, our public school system isn't aligned to that. You know, we're aligned to the test. Right, well, you know, with our students, when they get out, what are they gonna say? When they go look for employment, or I passed the STAR test. Really? To me, that's not prudent and accountable use. The state is finally hinged on something right in terms of the goal that we should set. Not just for us, but for technical schools, higher education. But, you know, they just don't, we're not aligned to that. So I think we really need to start thinking about what we want this district to do. We've set our goals, you know, and they're all aligned to pretty much start this, that accountability. You know? Not all of them, but the majority of them. You know, and in the past, these tests, what have they gotten us? You know, we had the tax, we had the sauce and the tax, and now we've got the STAR, and it's the same. I don't see any difference. I really don't. So, anyways, to that end, accountability for me is, you know, it's time to really take a hard look at that. So, and I think that as far as that's concerned, the rest, all of us, we need to look in terms of getting skills and credentials for our students. That's accountability. They get out of here with a certification, with a degree from community college, with 40 hours of community college hours. Great. I think we need to synthesize both of those programs. Anyways, you will talk next month. I'm talking too much already. All right, Sonia.
Yes, sir. Item number 2, open forum. However, there are no speakers that signed up for President.
Okay, then that takes us to the next agenda.
Yes, sir. Item 3, Board of Trustee Business. 3A, discussion and possible action regarding the approval of a $500 stipend for participants who completed the Reading Academy's deadline.
I so
I
moved.
do have some questions here.
I move to approve, though.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Got a second? All right, on this agenda item, Ms. Proud, you have something.
Yes, I do. Okay. My question is, the training will be online or will be face-to-face?
We were tight, Ms. Trout. I'll go ahead and answer that question. It was an online option. We had Region 19, who was the vendor, the provider, certain providers, and so due to the COVID pandemic, we did it via online with Region 19. And so that's how teachers completed the Reading Academies, which is a state requirement for teachers K through 3rd grade.
So, like I see this one, it's gonna be $80 extra if they take it on Saturdays, so they have the choice to take it on Saturdays. My question is, those $80 is on top of the amount that they have awarded?
So the deadline to complete the Reading Academies was July 12th. And so prior to this stipend, a way to help teachers complete it without having to, we offer them the opportunity of an $80 stipend if they worked on Saturdays or they came in and worked on it at different times. So yes, and then now with the ESSER funds And I know the board was really looking to see if we could provide a stipend, we were able to.
Definitely. So this one is for elementary, just and to third grade, and that's it, right?
Yes, the teachers that completed the reading academies from K to third grade. This is
And
the,
principals as well. I
and
guess.
principals, and if they were instructional coaches, anyone who completed it.
So very good, so let's just keep an eye on it, they will comply with that in July. Thank you so much, appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anybody else? Any comments? All right,
Thanks to
hearing
the
none.
administration for bringing this gas lickety split, thank you.
Did I see that right? It's 50,000?
Yes. Yes, that's what it is. I
Through the
think so.
teachers wished.
Anyway.
It's 500,
Yeah,
right?
I thought you.
Yes, thank you so much, appreciate it.
Okay, Sonia, full of word, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Coronado,
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez,
Yes.
Mr. Bayan,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Searles,
Yes.
and Mrs. Trout.
Yes,
Motion passes. Item 3B, just for kids, committee updates, progress, and recommendations. Administration.
So, Board, before we do that, what I wanna do is go through an exercise. What is a bond? When you think of a bond of your significant other, your mom, your dad, your sister, brother bond, brother, sister bond, the school bond. And I want you to look at the words, the thesauruses. What are 4 words that pop out to you when you think of the word bond?
I have my 4 already.
What are your 4?
My 4 for, Mr. Sheriff?
Just try.
Yes, I got engagement, relationship, union, and alliance.
Engagement, relationship, union, and alliance.
Everything's, yes.
This is the 4.
What's it? Friendship, promise,
Promise,
guarantee,
guarantee,
and word of honor.
the word of honor. If my dad used to tell me, I can just shake your hand, because it's your word. I don't need a lawyer, I just need your word. So, Bayan,
I've got word of honor, promise, attachment, connection.
connect me to that person in order to do something great. So,
Well, I'm not finding my first word on this list.
what's your first word?
Money,
Money,
money, it's not on here.
taxpayer.
So after money, yeah, I think of bonds, and I think of treasury bonds, government bonds, municipal bonds, you know, ways to make and trade, it's money, financial, first thing. And after that, friendship, promise, and a vow.
Promise and a vow. What was your wedding vow? Wedding
That's
vow,
right, right, until death do us part.
Hopefully it's her. No, I'm kidding, honey, honey.
Don't say that about Jimmy.
Just kidding.
When you think about this, if you're, you know, because bond can mean different things, but, you know, if you look at the term itself, that it could apply to the various types of bonds that there are. I would think it's, you know, attachment, word of honor, a relationship, and also can be an assurance. There's bonds that you have to take out if you're running a business to ensure that you're gonna act in good conduct. There's a bond is, you know, it also means an attachment and a union. And, you know, and then also the relationship. So that's what kind of stands out.
Insurance. assurance that we're going to do something with what you say is money, and assure to our taxpayers that we're going to complete. Whatever we say, whatever we agree upon. Mr. Rodriguez.
So, first one is a partnership with the community, connection with our students, an assurance to the community that we, and then pledge. Pledging and assuring that we would complete those projects, whether it's on budget, on price, on time, and making sure we get the best value for the district.
So I know from my experience, if you're on time and under budget, you're a hero. If you're not on time and you're over budget, you're a zero. So I guess the board from the JFK, we've bonded together. You have JFK committee members, and I'm not going to speak to you, but we've bonded over the last, how many meetings we have? 8. Pledging, vowing, creating those relationships, promising and guaranteeing that what we say with that 187 million, that's what we're going to do to the community. And again, to be very honest with open communication, not to keep the cake, is that the 2011 bond has left them questioning the promise, questioning the guarantee. And what I wanted to assure the committee and the community as well as the board is, according to this team up here, that we put in systems in place and structures in place. That's why we have a high credit rating. That's why our fund balance has gone up. That's why we have our auditor monitoring these checks and balances. So we don't have, there are some good things that happened in 2011. We got this back, we got that. But again, I wanted to be honest with you all that part of the community in JFK was that they felt that broken promise, that relationship. And so now what we want to do, because part of every relationship, you have to go on and forgive. In order, so we can work together in order to have an assurance to do something great. So this was just a communication between the JFK and the board, when you know that I kept thinking of bond, and I would know the word trustee, and this is what they said in the source. A bond is an association. It is a word of honor. It is a guarantee, it's a promise, it's a vow, it's an affiliation. A bond brings community together to do something good. And again, that's why we're here. We're here to bring community together to do something great. So with that, I'll leave you to the next phase.
Welcome, everyone.
Great. Good evening, Board President Coronado, members of the board, Dr. Galaviz. We're very excited to be here tonight to share with you the journey that we've had with this important stakeholder committee just for kids. We felt it was important, the district felt it was important to create a committee where our stakeholders have a voice in the future of this premier district. The district's goals and objectives were for them to listen and understand the data, to make informed decisions and/or recommendations regarding a possible future bond. But just as important is that we listen to their perspectives. The goal of this committee has been and continues to be that this process is collaborative, inclusive, and transparent. I'd like to introduce the individuals who have been working diligently with us throughout the process in order to identify projects to be considered for this possible upcoming bond. Right next to me is Michelle Dudley and Cara Hornbuckle, that was unable to be here today, from Pfluger Architects, who have been assisting us in the facilitating the community meetings to build a consensus towards a common goal. Ben Barcone, Dr. Giovanna Grijalva, and Dr. David Peterson from ADM Group, who completed the facility assessment and master plan for the district. Marnie Rocha, our academic leader. Ms. Pekarsky, our finance guru, who will address the tax impact of a future bond. Bruno Vasquez, our boots on the ground. And of course, our fearless leader, Dr. Galaviz. We're going to run through the process we've gone through with the committee so you can understand what all has been discussed and presented. Every committee member was provided a binder like yours with data. We had several meetings at different campuses discussing different items such as the expansive development, enrollment projections, growth, facilities, and much more. Our committee members even heard from our bond counsel and our financial advisors to understand the impact on our homeowners.
On May 26th, Dr. Galaviz shared the district's vision and the committee's role in supporting that vision. Mrs. Rocha presented Canutillo ISD profiles for its learners, employees, and the community at large. The meeting was concluded with a tour of AMS. On June 2nd, the committee toured the high school and learned about growth, development, and enrollment projections in Canutillo ISD. There is a development update in your binders that shows new homes and businesses. On June 8th, there was a campus tour of BCE, and the committee learned more about the exciting facility needs from Mr. Vasquez, the existing facility needs. There was also a presentation on athletics and CTE. On June 16th, the JFK committee toured CES and heard about the needs of the Fine Arts Department. Dr. Peterson spoke about the facilities master plan and the needs of the district, both current and future. On June 23rd, the district hosted a virtual meeting for the JFK committee to discuss the district's financial bonding capacity and anticipated impact on homeowners' tax rates. The district's legal counsel also explained how the bond propositions will be structured on the ballot. On June 29th, the JFK committee met at CMS and reviewed all the previously presented bond recommendations. There were many questions and discussion about the potential projects. The meeting ended with a dot exercise that allowed all committee members to weigh in on the various projects. We're going to share that with you in a little bit. At the JFK kickoff meeting, we presented this next handful of slides to encourage everyone to think about education today and into the future. It is important to consider, how does Canutillo ISD remain competitive in today's educational environment? We're just going to quickly go through these, but we were talking about the future leaders, today's students, and tomorrow's graduates. We started by looking at how things were, how much has changed, and how different education is today. How do we prepare for growth and enrollment in the district? How do we address safety, health, and technology needs of our students? And how do we address the necessary renewal of our existing facilities? I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Rocha.
Members of the board, one of the things we also did is, what is the end product that we want to have at the end of 12 years of our students, right? What do we want to see with our students? And one of the things that was developed was these portraits of where we want our students to be. And one of the things we realized is that we want our kids to, quite simply, to have street smarts, to have book smarts. The things we want for our community is for them to be open-minded, to be flexible about the things that are happening, want to attend or to find the job that they want to have in the workforce. And so we've listed those. For employees, we want them to continue their professional development. No matter what type of position they hold, they should always have that continuous improvement. And of course, with the community, we want them also to put skin in the game. You want great students, please open up your business. Canutillo ethics, not only to go into the workforce, but be ethical in the workforce and in their school. And so we listed those, we listed the things that we want for our employees and for our community. Because ultimately, this is what the bond is about, right? The bond is about how do we make the system, the organization of Canutillo and this community meet those needs of our students, of our employees, and also to the people that we serve. And so that's something we wanted to share with you.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I just want to commend the committee for the work they've been doing, because there's been a lot of information I'm going to briefly share with you some of the highlights that have come out of the work that we've done, it's hard to believe, the last year and a half here for the facilities master plan. And the first slide just shows you a snapshot of the district and the facilities. And, you know, to kind of highlight it, what's important is I drive down the highway, I always see Canutillo High School, and it looks, I always go, gosh, that looks like a new school. But in reality, that school is going on 17 years old. It's hard to believe. It's had a generation of students go through it. If you look at the Lone Star building, it was built in 1943. It's had a lot of generations of students go through it, and it's well worn. So there's things that we identified as we went through and did our work that the next slide shows as we put together our master plan, and we worked with district staff. Maintenance staff was great, principals were great, custodians were great. Bruno's team did a lot of good work to help support us as we looked at every single part of this district from the ground up, walked every roof, opened every door, and really got a good understanding of the bones of Canutillo Independent School District. And with that, we came up with our first option that we had in our master plan, which was facility upgrades. Those were the things that were identified that need to be taken care of in current facilities that totaled $127 million in future needs were things looking to the future because as Marnie talked about, kids are doing great things here and they have to continue. So we have to look to support them as we move forward. So that was 60.5. Again, you saw a number earlier of 187.5 million. That was mentioned briefly and it'll be talked more about by Martha, but that's an important number to understand to maintain the tax rate for this district. And so that was a key number that we looked at. So the next shows that every single facility under option A is having work done. Some more than others. As you can look at even Reyes Elementary, it's your newest school, but there's a few things that need to be done there. Not a whole lot, but a few. But then there's some of your older campuses and larger campuses. And then after that was the actual options for future needs under option A. So some of the highlights were the permanent facilities at the early college high school and looking at multi-purpose buildings at your other elementary schools so that there's some equity that goes on. So we went from there and we talked with the committee and started meeting with the committee on things. And the next option was option B. That was facility upgrades of 78.4 million and future needs of 109. So again, we had to take some things that we looked at in the assessments and remove those out in order to look at how we would balance the future needs for that total 187. So we did that. Again, every campus would be having work going on, some less than others, some significantly less, but every campus would be touched. And then the future needs. One of the things that came up there and bubbled up was looking at possibility of a new middle school and taking the older middle school and doing some things to it was a possibility so that you have the ability not to lose the students on the other side of the freeway that are going to El Paso ISD and maintain them here in the district. And then evolved further discussions with the committee. And again, the committee asked a lot of great questions, some of them tough, some of them not so tough, but we had great discussions, a lot of deep discussions, and they are committed, and I can honestly say that. So option C then was a little more of a balance in the middle, 95 million for facilities upgrades and future needs of 91 million. And you can see the list there, how that has evolved. We're continually evolving. One of the things we're looking at and one of the things that the committee really had a good discussion with us about was, and you'll see that as Michelle shares with the voting, that the possibility of maybe not doing a new elementary school, but maybe doing a wing at Reyes to help with the overcrowding at Reyes and then do some other things there. So there's a possibilities. And that's coming from the committee. That's organically coming up as the committee has evolved. So that's where we are there, and I'll turn it over to Martha to talk a little bit about the financial part of it.
Good evening, President Coronado, members of the board, Dr. Galavis. 187 million is a big number. And so one of the things we wanted to look at is how could we pay for this and what effect this was going to have on the taxpayers. So as Dr. Peterson spoke about, one of the goals of the committee was to maintain the tax rate. So our current tax rate is $1.39. We don't know what the tax rate will be for next year because we're still waiting on TEA. But they wanted to see with the tax compression that the board is familiar with, that's happening on the M&O side, would that leave room for an increase on the INS side so that we could come back to this $1.39 as a total tax rate. So this is the breakdown between the maintenance and operations and the debt service. And so as we stated, and we just went through the budget process. And so, as I said, the $1.39 is our current rate. If we wanted to maintain the tax rate, you could see that we're estimating that 98 cents would be our next maintenance and operation. So that would leave approximately 5 cents to be added to still keep us maintaining that $1.39. Of course, we don't know yet what the 22 tax rate will be, but if the legislature continues on track with the compression, the tax rate will be compressed in 22 and in 23. So that would lead to increase the INS side while maintaining a level tax rate. The other part of the impact on the homeowners is the property values. And of course, the property values are beyond the control of the school district, but we wanted to take a look at what would be the possible impact on the taxpayer if the tax rate remained the same, but there was an increase in their property value. And so in the last round of budget, the property values for homeowners went up approximately 2%. And so that's where we came up with this slide showing the increase of $48 per year. Of course, $48 a year would break down into possibly approximately 13 cents
Okay, here we wanted to go back and share with you the outcome of the June 29th meeting with the Just for Kids Committee. Again, as Dr. Peterson explained, we talked about these three options, A, B, and C, and all addressed both existing facility needs and future needs to a different degrees. At the end, we did this. Okay, this is the first option A that was presented, and what we did is we asked the committee. Everybody got green and red dots, and we asked them to put green dots next to the things that they felt good about, that they would support, and to put a red dot next to something if they didn't feel convinced or they weren't 100% on board with supporting this particular item. So as you can see, up at the top, what we asked them to do was to put the dot there if they were like supporting the option overall. So you'll see at the top of option A, there were, I think, 15 green dots supporting option A. And so we have some summary slides that we can share with you if you want to, but we wanted to just let you take a look at this. And the things that were a concern on option A were the new elementary school and the surplus storage facility, which we really haven't spent much time talking about with the committee, to be honest. And you can see the scattering of green and red dots on the different items on option A. And on option B, we actually got quite a few red dots at the top and only one green dot. But there was a pretty good level of support for the new middle school. So on this particular, it's included in both options B and C. So you're going to see that. There were some mixed feelings about whether or not to convert All Direct A into a 9th grade center, which was if we build a new middle school, we don't need to have 3 middle schools. So we would potentially convert All Direct A to a 9th grade center. That would relieve capacity at the high school, as well as providing sort of a base for those 9th grade students. And then the CTE is included in all the options, and so you'll see that it was supported pretty much across the board. The new elementary, again, got some red dots, and the other things were pretty well supported. The multipurpose buildings at the elementary schools, the early college permanent classrooms, and a potential Lone Star district office combination. So option C had a mixture of green and red at the top in the big picture. You can see again, the surplus storage facility received some red dots. The new elementary definitely got some mixed reviews, 3 green and 3 red. The new middle school here received 4 green dots. And you can see that the renovation at Lone Star, for whatever reason, got a number of red dots. So we haven't been back with the committee to meet with them since this exercise. So we haven't really had an opportunity to debrief and let them tell us what the dots mean. So we're kind of sharing with you our observations from what we received. You can interpret it however you like. But we feel like option A got the most support. And so that was kind of our starting point of making a recommendation. And then when we meet with the committee again later this month, we hope to talk through with them all the various projects and understand exactly whether they think that we should not build the new elementary school, which, as Dr. Peterson mentioned, there's kind of been more talk about since the most recent meeting with them about possibly doing just a classroom addition at Reyes, which would enable that. That campus is the only elementary that is over its capacity, 112% utilization of the capacity of that existing, that newest school. So in order to relieve, that overcrowding at Reyes, there's the potential of building a classroom addition. That campus was planned to have an addition, whether it be 6 through 8 or additional elementary classrooms. And what we're suggesting is possibly it's more responsible to build a classroom addition at Reyes and then possibly a new middle school on that side of the freeway to, like Liza said, to keep people from leaving the district and to provide a new facility for middle school students. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions we'd like to.
That, I'd like to honor the committee.
Okay.
Because if you're part of the committee, please stand. Just want to thank the committee. We do have 2 students. We have one now a graduate, Mr. Ramos Jesus, and a Rekan Ask, and they were giving us input on a student, because traditionally we found people younger than him. But we do have, the committee did vote on spokespeople, so we do have the spokespeople along with Mr. Flores. I know your daughter's birthday, happy birthday, you have to go spend some time with her. And Ms. Clapsat, our high school principal. Any questions? They're here to answer questions. On behalf of the committee.
Sure.
Ms. Trout?
I just got a question. It's going to come later on while we talk, but my question is the committee agree in this? Is the committee decide option A, B, and C? Who is representing the committee?
Well, I can say they haven't decided anything. They haven't made a final decision or a recommendation yet. Like I said, this has been an evolving process, so I don't know if they're allowed to speak. It's fine with me.
Please, this is the time. I would like to see someone in the committee. It's important because they represent the committee, so I cannot take any decision. Yes.
The committee itself created a
Can someone from
group
the
of
committee
spokespersons.
Mr. Bruno, if you don't mind.
Hello, Ms. Trupp.
Please, can you please come
I'm
over?
part of the committee.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that, Mr. Bruno. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Hello, everyone. I'm Bernardo Varela. Oh, yeah. I'm Bernardo Varela.
Yes, sir.
Part of the committee. And
You can have a seat if you
Oh,
want.
yeah. Well, I'll stand, please.
Okay.
And we all voted on the committee, and this is what we came up with. So the green dots is what the committee wants, what the public wants.
Okay.
The parents, teachers, and also administration wants for the district now. The only problem that I think that we have gone into is the new elementary school. As you can see already, there's a little push on that from, administration, and we're probably going to be able to work it out. Because if you look at this, there's something for everything. There's something for the administration, there's something for the teachers, and there's something for the parents. And once we put a whole option together of green dots, I think the bigger picture will come together for the board and the committee. where we could be able to say, hey, look, we agree on this, and let's try to, the parents and the administration and the teachers that live in County Field to be able to vote on it. And so we can serve our kids, you know. One thing that's really has disturbed me is that look at facility assessments. It's $232 that we need to upgrade our schools. Excuse me. And if you think about that's crumbling infrastructure. And it blows me away that we let our schools, our district grow to $232 million worth of facility upgrades. And that really bugs me personally, because instead of giving the kids what they need, because what I've heard, our kids leave the district when they get into high school, it's because there's no facilities, you know, the baseball fields, lighting, football fields. And we're thinking about building a new elementary school. But instead of giving the kids the things that they need to stay in our district. Now, an elementary school perhaps is going to keep the kids in our district, but we already have kids leaving at the high school level to go to El Paso because of facilities. So we should try to keep that in mind. And like I said, most importantly, $232 million of crumbling infrastructure. I could get dramatic and say, are our schools safe for our kids to go into? I mean, that's how bad I could think of it. Also, I'd like to say, if you ever visit our elementary schools, our fencing is see-through. And that presents a danger to our children because of a shooter. He doesn't necessarily have to come inside our schools to do damage to our children. Kids, there could be 30 kids at lunch playing, and the shooter can sit outside the fence. I've been a big advocate of the multi-purpose, excuse me, yes, multi-purpose building. So at least they have a little protection there, because we've talked about key cards going inside the school, but when you have 30 kids trying to get into double doors, it can work. But at least there'll be a multi-purpose building to shield them from an active shooter outside the chain link. It's just a chain link thing. So there's some things, but if you really look at this, the community, the teachers, and administration have come together, and it's something that we should probably celebrate. And once it's all done, I think the community will be able to come together and try to trust this board once more to be able to pass this law. So I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Alexis Rossi. I'm one of the spokespeople for the committee. And thank you for the opportunity to speak and just to expand upon what everyone at this table said and my fellow community member. There's still some discussion that needs to be had. So while we met quite a lot and had some really productive discussions, and we have come down to certain priorities, there's still additional ideas that we want to discuss and to review the results and debrief, as was mentioned, so that we can come up with an option that really serves everyone. So as you can see from the data so far, there are red on each of those options, and what we want to do is really come to an option that is much more green for everybody. As was mentioned, we want to make sure that teachers, faculty, staff, and students and community members each have something that they can support and get behind. And so we do, today's presentation has focused on the process and our initial results, we do need a little bit more time before we come up with a final option for you all to vote on and some further discussion. But we're happy to answer any questions while we're here tonight.
I have two questions. One in regards to the safety. Sorry, I thought it was on. One in regards to safety, that has been an issue that I've looked at in regards to the chain link. Has there been discussion of possible rock walls? Is that
No, we haven't considered rock walls as a perimeter fence at all.
What we have looked at is during each facility tour, we have pointed out various changes that could be made, whether it's entries or fences, that kind of thing. But in terms of a specific recommendation of saying rock walls versus a multi-purpose room, building versus something else, the committee has not come to a conclusion on that.
Or panels, just to provide those options to the committee and see what they would like, because I do see that as a safety and security issue. That was one question. The other question, in regards to the history of Reyes Elementary, was to, and if you saw, I believe we might have the original, floor plan or site plan on how it was supposed to be, and that was all supposed to be looking at turning that into a middle school. Originally, it was supposed to be K through 8, and so just looking at the option of converting that into a middle school instead of a brand new middle school, because as we know, the costs of middle schools and high schools are a lot more. And then looking at elementary, just to provide that to the community, unless that's already been part of the discussion, because that does have the capacity of the middle school.
You look at that, Trustee Rodriguez. However, the K through 8 at Reyes does not lend itself to a full-blown middle school, 700, 800 kids. It's just for Reyes community. So hence, it doesn't make sense to run 3 middle schools district this size. Now you're talking UIL, you're talking extra expenses. So the footprint at Reyes, when we talk to the architect, it doesn't lend itself to a middle school of 800-900 kids. Not enough room there. It's intended just for the K through 8, just for Reyes Elementary.
But it would basically be those 5th graders growing up, to their next year will be 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. So you're only going to be accommodating the students that are in elementary school at Reyes if you added 6th, 7th, and 8th grade to that campus. And so what we were trying to do was to capture, a bigger audience. Like Dr. Galavis said, obviously you don't need 3 middle schools. And so we felt it would be more successful to have 2 middle schools, potentially 1 new, or just make improvements to the 2 existing middle schools or whatever combination, but we didn't feel it was, as responsible to have 3 middle schools.
And I know, you all are the professionals, but in regards to changing of the changing of the acreage versus high school back then required 50 acres. Now it's more, especially now that we're starting to compete with charter schools. How do you build up and make sure that it's more of a really utilized facility instead of an expanded overall? So that's just something to think about. And the third comment that I had, and I do agree in regards to the 2011 bond program, that's been a mess, and for that fall. And so I want to make sure that when looking at the structures and systems in regards to the policies or administrative regs, that the board is not part of that. We want professionals to make those decisions too. And so that's something to look at.
May I comment on that? I appreciate that. The committee has had a number of concerns, as Dr. Galavis mentioned earlier, around the lack of transparency and trust with the board. And as was mentioned, we're putting so much work into this bond. We really want to make sure that it does pass and that we do get community buy-in, and that it is a victory for our district and for our students. And so making sure that, and one of the reasons why we brought that as an issue to the board today before we bring our recommendations, is that the committee really wants to make sure that the board is going to be accountable and that you're going to hear the recommendations from the community, and that there's going to be transparency moving forward in terms of actually following through with, especially those big ticket items that are dependent on the bond and that are recommended by the community itself. And so we're working really hard on getting something that we believe that the community can support. And we would like to ask the board's support for that in the future. But beyond that, it's not just about what the bond includes or not, but also about those processes and how the board's going to support that. So if you have any questions about what you think the community needs from you all, I'd be happy to engage in that
I might just to give a little history, and hopefully that helps with the committee. And first, thank you all for your time. I know you all have, delved into this over the last couple of months, and we appreciate that. But in the past, the district had a construction committee, we had a finance committee, we had like 5 committees, 3-member committees. If it didn't get approved through the finance committee, it would go to the construction. It was just always, and we're not professionals in regards to that. And so that's why we did eliminate the committee structure, and that's been one step forward in focusing on student outcomes instead of facilities and other stuff that as board members we should focus more on student outcomes. That has happened in the past, so that's hopefully something that you all may have not noted, but what I'm hoping is in regards to the administrative regs, that goes through looking at best practices other districts, what they've done, and then doing that within our district. So that way it could be assurance to the community and to the community that we have the professionals making those decisions.
I appreciate that, and just as a knowledge share in the interest of transparency, if y'all practice what I preach. The committee is looking at, there's been discussion around whether or not in the actual wording of the bond that there can be certain things that are in there so that we are legally bound as a district to ensure that that happens. So we had some discussion on our virtual call with our bond agents and lawyers about that. There's some pros and cons to that, and we have to be careful that it doesn't get so long and so detailed that we don't have any flexibility as a district to move forward and work within changing costs. As we all know, lumber has increased, or changing needs over the next few years. But perhaps as part of our proposal, we'll also be letting you know those items based on the data that are the most highly supported within the committee, and then we can talk about whether or not that language would be included in the actual bond vote, and that then we're legally bound to follow through on that versus what's flexible. And I think that would help with the accountability. And we've also, the folks at this table have been really great about telling the community members about how this process is going to move forward and who's going to be responsible for it. I think, and I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, that there is trust in that process. It's just really the hang up right now on the board and whether or not that's going to have support and what the processes after that for the board are going to be. But I'm sure we can clarify that as we move forward. Just to let you know that you might get those questions from the community as this proceeds.
I do, and these don't have to be answered right now, but Ms. Rocha, I'd like to know how many out of district, and you'll have to tell me now if you put it in Thursday packet, how many out of district transfers we have at Reyes. And to the committee, that means how many kids up there aren't Canutillo kids. They're coming in from El Paso and taking out seats. I'd like the committee and the community to understand there's a huge, I'm not being negative, this is real life. There's a huge difference between a tax rate and an appraisal. And if this district says your tax rate, we're not going to raise your taxes, we're not going to do that, that's good. Maybe we're not. But in comes your appraisal. And when which they're going to keep going up, look at how beautiful Canutillo is becoming. So, and I'm sure everybody like me got a tax bill this year. It looked the same as the year before. Your appraisals are going to cause the tax rate to go up. Or your tax, what your property value is, what you pay, is going to go up. No matter whether the board raises the tax rate or not. So they're two separate things that you have to take into consideration. There's also, Mr. Carson, there's a new law, and I just watched the legislative agenda. I just went through the training. There's a new law on the M&O and what you can do with that as far as moving INS and M&O, and I don't think they've come to a conclusion on the law. If maybe you and I could talk about it tomorrow, we can see what that does to us in terms of taxes and how we can look at that. It's brand new. So I'll give you a call and maybe we can talk about that. I'd like to have the red dot slides. Dr. Gallagher, with these slides, red dots that we didn't get. And I'd also like to know, all of these are at $187.5 million. Is that correct, or am I seeing it wrong? That no matter which option you take, we're going, no?
Can I speak?
Yes, I'd like to speak as well.
My name is John Gorham. I'm a community member, businessman, taxpayer. To the members of the board, I am a supporter of Kansas Independent School District. I think we need a different option that doesn't total $187.5 million. I think we need to address the needs of the maintenance and upkeep of the district. I think we need to adopt a pay-as-we-go policy. We're talking about spending $187.5 million based on projections, what might not happen. I think we need to adopt a more fiscal, responsible policy where we spend what we absolutely have to spend to take care of these our children. And all this pie in the sky stuff can be put off to some other time. I realize we have to get out ahead of the curve because it takes a while to build schools and things like that. We've got elementary schools now that are at less than 50% capacity, and we're not utilizing those. And just as a community member, not even talking about the tax issue, when I run my business, I have to operate on what I have to work with. And I can't go to anybody else and say, I need more money to do this. So I'm asking that the school board would kind of sit back and look at, let's fix the things that need to be fixed. Let's give the kids what they need. But sometimes nice to have can be put off till the future. And a smaller bond issue will certainly be more palatable to people who are just coming out of a COVID pandemic, some of which have lost their jobs. You know, as you say, what they appraise your house for and what you can actually sell it for is not the same thing. And your tax rate, you know, we can play this shell game all we want to. We'll keep it at 139 on a $150,000 house. Oh, your house just went to $250. Guess what? Your tax bill just went up. But you know, you don't have an additional $100,000 in your pocket. All you have is somebody's wish that your house is $250,000. So this is all smoke and mirrors until we figure out what we're doing. So all I'm saying is let's look at a little bit fiscally more responsible program and spend the money we need to spend to get our kids what they need. But cut the fat, cut the fluff until we can afford to do something different, because we can all, I don't know how often we can go back out for a bond issue, I don't have any idea. But I know one thing, $187.5 million is a lot of money, given the fact that we are still roughly $80 million in debt for some other stuff. We're gonna be stretching this thing out over 30 years, and maybe even longer than that. Unless I'm extremely lucky, 30 years from now, I'm not gonna be sitting here talking to you guys. Unless y'all are extremely lucky, some of y'all are gonna be sitting here to listen to me. But my kids are going to be here paying taxes, and my grandkids are going to be here paying taxes. In 30 years, KUTO will look vastly different than what it looks today in terms of facilities and housing, and we have to do some planning. But we also have to be fiscally responsible. 30 years is a long time to owe for something.
So with that, that's the other thing I'd like to have. I believe.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Joyner.
Mr. Joyner, you only look 32.
Only look 32, but I feel 67.
I couldn't find my original facilities assessment this week before. I don't know what I did with it, but there's no telling. But could I get a new facilities assessment? And I believe that when I spoke to the ADM company, they were very clear, because $187 million is a lot of money. And there's a lot of, you know, variables that go along with that. But what I remember was that our facilities master plan also had a whole segment of it, but these are immediate needs. These are priority needs, and they were really good. You know, they were very reasonable, good things to do. And so I think that maybe the committee ought to, I don't know if y'all would see that.
Yes, ma'am.
That's maybe a consideration also that you could maybe look at for us. So thank you, that's it. If I could get Martha Persky, I'll talk to you on the new law and see if that has implications. We could get the out-of-district transfers at Reyes, please. The red dot slide and the new facilities plan. And I really thank you all in the committee. I can see you're doing your due diligence and your hearts are in the right place. Thank you. I appreciate you. That's all, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. Mr. Bynum. Yes, again, I want to reiterate again what the appreciation we have for the committee coming together and working. I know it's a challenge because you've got your life to live, and I admire you for putting the community, the school, and the kids ahead of sometimes a lot of your needs. And I really appreciate that. My first question is, this presentation here shows future needs only. On the binder that I have, and correct me if I'm wrong, the future needs here is option A is $187.5 million. But on the binder, you show future needs on option C, 91.6. Option A, 60.5. And then you show facility upgrades on option C of 95. So those two total $187 million. This isn't $187 million, is it?
That's just the future needs. That
187
no,
million?
no. 187 million is the total combined.
That's for the
three
facility
different
upgrades.
options that are on the screen right now. Each total 187 million, as someone pointed out. You know, we haven't come up with an option that doesn't total that.
That's what I wanted to clarify because Mr. Joyner, appreciate your presentation too, but I just want to make sure that the community understands that the future needs themselves are not $187.5 million.
No, that's correct.
The facility upgrades, which I know ADM presented before when they presented to us, was the upgrades to all the facilities, the roofing repairs and all of that. I think
if we do all of that,
not to
that's
tell you how to do the thing, but I think you need to clarify and specify that $187 million is not just future needs.
That's correct. The first option, option A, includes 100% of the recommendations that ADM made. Peterson, correct me.
Okay, that's what the
127 million is the facility upgrades of option A, 127.
Could you go back to slide 23, please?
Sure.
Right there. So this slide here shows a total of $127 million of projects from the assessment that we did. And then the other 60 million to make up the 187 was future needs.
Okay.
But even then, we call them future needs, but the reality is the permanent early college, high school classroom buildings, that's really not a new campus that isn't existing now. It's to replace those portable buildings because they're in bad shape and the floors are falling in. All the Rate Middle School is to renovate that school because it needs renovations in that middle part of it. So the terminology there is a little different. The middle school football field, artificial turf, because Cantil Middle School is the only middle school. The high school and all the Rate both have artificial turf, so we want to try to get some equity there. So we titled it future needs, but in reality it's some current things that we have. The really future part there was the new elementary school that was put on there, and the career and technology, which I think we have heard that from the committee, we've heard that from the community, that career and technology is very important. We've heard it from the district, that we need to make sure our children are well prepared for the future. And not every child's gonna go to college. So how do we make sure they're well prepared? We get a good, solid community, career and technology education building built for them with solid programs, so they learn some skills. They can come out with certifications, and believe it or not, a lot of them graduating can make up to $60,000 as a skilled individual coming out of those programs. So we wanted to make sure that happens. So there's a combination there, but we were addressing on that slide there, the 127 million as part of what was identified in the overall facility assessment.
That's right. I just wanted to clarify because I was thinking, some people were thinking that this is only future needs. So just, I don't know how you want to address it, but make sure that people understand this is just not future needs. This is facilities upgrades included.
It's a package deal on all three
That's
options.
what, see, because when I saw this,
Terminology on the top of the slide that kind of needs to be done.
the other question I had, and I don't know if you can elaborate on that. Well, going with what Mr. Rodriguez said, the safety of the students on the campuses. I agree with it. Chain link fence does not provide any kind of security for the kids. Looking at the cost of a solid structure around the campus, or maybe some modification or some barriers to exposed segments of the campuses, instead of a whole ring around the campus with a rock wall, maybe providing some type of a solid barrier, some type of a solid structure where the kids can congregate, and the rest of it could be chain link. Because I agree with Mr. I forget the gentleman's name. The kids' safety is paramount. And in this world today, the way things are going, this trooper that just confronted a young man that confronted the state trooper at the service station, those things are going to be more often. And God help us if one of our kids gets, like the gentleman noted earlier. I think we need to look at that seriously. Some type of a partial barrier for the kids to congregate instead of a whole thing around the whole campus. I don't know, maybe ADM can come up, or the architects can come up with something like that. I would really encourage the committee to look at something like that. Thank you.
On behalf of the administration, I wanted to clarify something, and then talking about future needs and what we need now. As the principal of the high school, kids are not leaving because the high school doesn't have what it needs as far as facilities. We lose kids after Reyes because they want to stay on that side of the freeway. So they go to Ornado or they go to Brown Middle School. Sometimes they come back. Sometimes they'll go to Franklin and they realize that it's so big and they don't like it, so they'll come back. I have at the high school close to 100 transfers. And the majority of my transfers are from Coronado and from Franklin. So it's not because we don't have the facilities at the high school. The bigger loss takes place from Reyes, that group going to Brown or going to Ornado, and then sometimes they come back and sometimes they don't. And as far as future needs or needs right now, the high school's 15 years old, right? And so we've been doing a lot, like our cafeteria is being redone, and I drove Bruno crazy during COVID because I got to walk around a lot more and there weren't people blocking things. So I was like taking pictures and I'm like, can we fix this? Can we fix this? So it's a constant upgrade whenever you have 1,600 kids in a building, right? So it's a constant need, but I think our biggest future need at the high school, so that we can not only keep our kids here in our district, is that middle school that's closer to or in Cimarron, and the CTE facility. Those are really our two big. You want to make a commitment to the kids. You want to impact, like Mr. Rodriguez said, that your role as the board is to impact and improve that instruction and kids' lives after they graduate from high school. That's where it needs to be, and that's how we need to sell it and make sure that the community understands that this is something that's going to not just benefit their children, but it's going to impact their homes as well, because let's be honest, we do have a lot of kids at work that help support those families, right? And so we can really impact not just the high school, not just our kids, but we're also going to have a positive impact in our community. With the middle school, we can keep our kids here, as well as a high school that can provide CTE programs, and we can also start drawing around districts around us like Anthony that maybe doesn't have it. Let's take those kids away from EPISD and bring that money in, because when we raise our enrollment and we can bring those kids in to do those CTE programs with us, just to do CTE program, we're bringing in revenue, and that will also help us to offset. So maybe, Mr. Joyner, I agree, it won't take 30 years to pay off these things. But the majority of what we're looking at as a committee is how do we get our schools and our facilities just back up to par, honestly. And the future need, of course, is a new middle school, and then the CTE building. So.
One question also I meant to ask earlier. Who is going to address the issue of how big, how extensive, how variable the subjects are going to be taught at the CTC Center? Who is going to address this issue? Because I really look forward to seeing something significant with the CTC. You're right. Kids have to graduate out of Canutillo with a marketable skill. And you're right, those kids support some of their families. They help the families. And I agree with you. Anthony, El Paso, all those schools would, if we could do something that would model a CT center in the region and the state, let's do that.
Right, and that's
Please look at it seriously, not
yes, sir.
something that.
And just so you know, Mr. Bayon, Dr. Galavis and myself and our CTE director, Ms. Andrews, we sat down, we phased out some programs based on the what the Boardplex has told us. Hey, these are not programs that are going to be high income earning programs, right? And so we are making sure, and we're very intentional. We're not just going to bring in a program to bring in a program to say we have a program, right? We want to bring in programs like we have law enforcement. We have kids that are graduating with security levels 1 and 2 security guards, so they can go to work right away if they want to. We have patient tech care. Kids are doing their internships at that hospital up there at Trans Mountain and able to graduate and get a job working as a patient care tech, a pharmacy tech, a dental hygienist. So we are looking at robotics, engineering, computer science. So please know and rest assured that we are having those very lengthy conversations, and our goal is to make sure that our kids are walking out ready to walk into a job or a career, if that's what they choose, to be able to be successful and impact their lives and their community.
One of the criticisms I've always had with the El Paso Community College is that they don't offer, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm judging them because I used to work with them in my previous job, but it killed me that some of these kids had to go and pay $13,000, $14,000, $15,000 for a welding course or another course to try to get a license, or try to get a skill when they could have gotten into community college on taxpayer money. And if we can do that at the Canutillo Independent School District, those kids would be free of any debt in the future. And we owe it to them to do that.
Absolutely, and we do actually have a welding program with a certification that Mr. Gill runs.
One of the best.
Absolutely.
But along with everything we're doing is awesome. We're utilizing classrooms, built for classrooms. Not
correct.
So we want to do an electric, and one of our ideas is to do an electrical trade on construction. Again, we don't have a facility.
Like an HVAC.
And that's why I say we need to do something significant, not.
Yes, sir.
I think it goes along back with the name Trustee Coronado wants to look at the 60 by 30. We could develop a CTE center that is aligned with these high demand.
I just went to get my eyes checked and I asked the youngster who was doing my eye exam, where he went to school, where he went to, and he said Southwest University. I don't know how much they charge, but believe me, it's not free.
It's a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, anybody else?
Mr.
Mr.
I'm happy to hear that, Ms. Laxado. Thank you very much. Of course, the high school SCT building will be in Canutillo High School, right? And where is the new high school, the new middle school will be built at?
So there is no decision on any project as of right now, but of course the data is telling us that the most logical place to locate that new middle school is in the area north of the intersection of Trans Mountain and I-10.
Now, a question maybe for you, Bruno, or for the rest here, the gentlemen. I was reading the whole thing, one by one. And I'm happy to see a lot of things, a lot of improvements as well. But you know that I'm a big advocate of children with disabilities. And unfortunately, I don't see any update for the children with disabilities. I see just renew this playground, but I don't see any inclusive playground. I just passed to my colleagues here, what is an inclusive playground? At least one. Unfortunately, I was today joining at the House, and the bill that I was pushing for, Bill 24, it didn't pass. But we're not gonna wait until the House or the Senate pass that, because we need to do something for kids with disabilities. And what I was talking about is, if you can please come and get one of these, Mr. Bruno. Oh, thank you so much, and the rest of them. It's not that expensive. All that I know is a category of every school district. We should comply at least with one facility in the whole district. So what I'm showing.
Per campus, in fact.
Excuse me?
Per campus, in fact.
Yes, exactly, even better. So we don't have nothing, and I don't see nothing in this binder for kids with disabilities. And if I'm gonna vote for this bond, let me tell you, I'm not gonna vote if there's nothing addressed to the kids with disabilities. I need to vote in for something to be inclusive by law, by ADA. We need to do that.
So it is included, Ms. Strout, we can point it out and send it in as part of an update of the Thursday packet, but it is included.
Will be great. If this is for the kids that are in the wheelchairs, could be elementary and middle school. This is a complete playground, this is assembled. We could put it over there, and the teacher, the caregiver, they will do that. So the kids, they need to, there's also some games that they need to come and interact and play with that. It's not that expensive, which I would like to see it included here. Also, this is another thing, I don't know if it's interesting or not, but I was reading, of course, doing my homework, and there's a robot here that they place in every campus. And this robot, in 3 seconds, it will detect if the student has flu, chickenpox, COVID-19, or some infections in the eye. So this one could be placed in each or every one of our campuses, which is not that expensive. This one, I was switching and checking in Mexico City. The students of middle schools and high schools, they did it through online because it's only the brain. Of course, the body work and everything, they just imported from someplace. And they place one of these robots in each one of the campus, so which is going to, of course, facilitate the time for our teachers to come and check each one of them. This one even interacts with the student. So this is something that I was thinking about to put it in our campuses, in elementary school overall. And for high school and middle schools, we could have like the ones that you come and put your forehead, and it's not that high costly, but it's something that is going to help us because we don't know exactly how long COVID is going to stay here or not. I think I spoke to you, Dr. Rico, so it's well with Dr. Galaviz, and now my colleagues, they know about this, so hopefully I could see something for our students in this matter, and also to see inclusive playgrounds in our district. Thank you so much.
Ms. Choi, for their.
Yes, ma'am. I can hear you. Can you please put that?
Yes, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for the focus around inclusivity. I did want to assure you that that has been a lens through which some of our discussions have been held, both at specific facilities as we do those tours. We recognize those areas that are not ADA compliant and also those areas that need to be improved. And then even on Monday, I believe we had another conversation around this, and we were talking about lessons learned from COVID and ways that our campuses can be improved from those lessons. So things like water bottle fill stations instead of just water fountains and so forth. But even at that point, there was discussion around ensuring that those aspects are accessible and that they are compliant with ADA guidelines. So I very much, as a DEI advocate, I very much appreciate your advocacy for that. And I did want to reassure you that that is part of the current discussion that
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much, because those that can speak by themselves, we need to do something for them. And to Ms. Pekarsky, a small question. You just said that $48 per year. So it's going to take how many years to pay this bond? Just to inform the community. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much, Dr. Rossi. Thank you.
Hi, normally we go out for 30 years on a bond, but because there's different lifetimes for the different assets, like for example, the technology might be over 7 years, whereas the building will be over 30 years. So there's going to be differing years depending on what the final composition of the bond projects are. However, it's going to be spent over 7 years, if that's what you want to know.
How many?
We will spend the money over 7 years.
And for the community, how long is it going to take for us to pay them?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It depends on the composition of what the projects are. So for example, a technology project would only be paid over 7 years, whereas the building, a new school building, would be financed over 30 years. So it just depends on what the life of the asset is.
Or just, so then we're going to pay by one of the things, let's say, by building one school or computers or something.
I think a good example is the way you pay your mortgage for your house and the way you pay your loan for your car. The mortgage for your house is over many, many years.
Yes.
And the loan for your car is over less years, because your house is going to last longer than your car is.
So it will depend on the project or something like that. Oh,
yes, ma'am, exactly.
Okay.
Sure, it also depends on the growth of the district. As the district's tax base growth, then those bonds could actually be paid a lot.
Right, and also on the market, because you know that we've been doing the refinancings during the year, so
There's a lot of variables.
There's a lot of variables.
Actually allow us to shorten that. And then what's the other? The refinancing technology.
Oh, the refunding?
Yeah, throughout the bond program, there's not the bond program, but the bond sales and the bond financing. Different variables will come.
Right, the different tranches will be over the 7 years. So it's not like we're going to get all that money at one time.
And just one question, if I can take the floor back, please. We're talking, of course, what it says here about technology, and I'm going to insist one more time. Our students from Northwest Early College, 11th and 12th grade, they need new devices. They need new laptops that were never provided to them. And I don't want to leave those kids behind. I do understand that they have a little bit of different program because of DPCC or something. But there's computers, there's laptops that they could adjust to the programs that are taking. So the whole campuses, every campus, even the high school, everyone have new devices except Northwest Early College, 11th and 12th grade. Hopefully, this time, I could see those kids with these new items, new laptops. They never had it. I know they are enrolling or they given to them since they were freshmen. 4 years, 5 years with the same. We're talking about 2 years now. What happened? We need to help our kids and we need to satisfy their needs. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Shea.
Thank you, Ms. Trupp. Anybody else? All right, one of the questions I have is the.
Excuse me, so one more.
Would you mind?
Sure, go ahead, come on up.
So, good evening. A few of the things that were mentioned at the Just for Kids committee, one was about, some people were mentioning that a lot of the things that were on our papers seem to be deferred maintenance. I know that we talked with Mr. Bruner about that. And so, Mr. Bruner, I'm going to advocate for you for a minute, okay? I feel like if we're going to continue to build and talk about new buildings, what are we going to do to budget accordingly to make sure that we do a better job of maintaining those future buildings than we've done with our current buildings? I can tell you that my daughter's been at Candyville Elementary for 4 years now, and since then, the entire time, her roof has leaked. Every single time it rains. That's unacceptable for a child to have to go through elementary school and know that every single time it's raining outside, she's going to see it raining inside as well. And that's not on Mr. Bruner necessarily, because we asked him what's going on there. He said there's just a lot of the deferred maintenance, there's not enough budget for us to work with to upkeep and to keep these things fixed. And so that's my concern in regards to if we're going to pass this $187.5 million bond, and especially with some of the options taking away those facility updates that need, a lot of those facility updates that should be done, how are we going to then budget accordingly for those new buildings and for the buildings that we already have, because they're not being maintained the way that they should be? So I think that that's a real question that we need to address before we look at raising our tax rate and passing this bond, because if we can't maintain it, what's the point of passing it? So, I mean, I don't know if any of you have anything that you can answer in regards to that, but that's been a question that's been consistent throughout all of our meetings. We've been asking this. He did the best he could to answer our question, but he only has so much money in his pocket.
As far as there's no excuse on that, I'm gonna take both of that, because it's the responsibility to bring it forward, and to go budget it, because we only know what we know.
Right.
Right, we know there's a leak, where, you know what, then go fix it. Tell me what you need to fix it. So that's more of a communication. It's not the fault of the board, it's not the fault of maintaining, because now we do have a facility master plan, according, thanks to Dr. Peterson, and now we know what our buildings need. Now we can create a plan in order to maintain it.
Okay, but I have a question in regards to that. So it seems like then we're saying that these maintaining of these buildings have not been communicated, and that is not the case, because
I'm not saying that, I'm just saying is that if there's a classroom there, then again, it's up to someone with internally to bring it forward. And when they don't do that, then again, you're there speaking public, right? As a teacher, as a parent,
right.
I'm a community member. So then I don't want the board to perceive that we're not addressing it, because now we need to talk internally. So again, we do have a plan, but I don't want to take that one classroom, make it, CES is an old building.
But it's not just one classroom.
No, I'm just saying the CES, a lot of the deferred maintenance are old building.
Yes.
So another thing that I can say is there has been a lot of work and a lot of visits to address a lot of the issues that we see as deficiencies. In fact, when I first saw the original list of projects, I had to take I had to take a shield pill, because every item that I was reading is yes, but. And, this is wrong, or this is broken. Yes, but particularly at Canapio Elementary, we know the condition of those roofs, and we know that all of the work that we've done to try to address those situations, by the time we plug one, the other one comes up, and the same situation happens with the floors niches. And so one thing that we were bringing forth to the community is how much money are we willing to throw into those conditions rather than doing it right, fixing it completely. And so, if anybody wants to be well informed of what the problems are, it's me. I'm the first one that wants to know what the problems are, because that's the only way that we're going to be able to address them. Now, at this point in time, we are looking at the possibility of hopefully completely solving some of these issues. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to spend the whole day walking with our insurance adjuster, going over some of the problems that we had over the last couple of Sundays with the storms that we had. So, you know, it's a never-ending job.
You do a good job.
Mr. President, members of the board, and the community, I think it's important to understand, as an analogy, the facilities are kind of like your car. You buy a car, and as you drive it, you have to change the oil. All of a sudden, you drive a little more, and tires wear on. You have to change the tires. Drive a little more, and you got to tune it up. Eventually, you may have to change the transmission. It's the same as our schools. Our schools age. Our kids go through those, and believe it or not, our kids are tough on schools. Our kids are tough at our own homes. I know my kids were tough at my own home, and they're definitely tough in the schools too. So we have to understand that this isn't something that's just unique to Canutillo. This is something that is unique across, is happening across the country. Across the country, there's over $1 trillion of deferred maintenance in schools that hasn't been done. The average school across the country is 49 years old. Schools are old across the country, and they need a lot of work, and it takes dollars. And unfortunately, we have a limited budget, and the state doesn't give additional dollars that we would like to have. And what else happens? Our utility bills go up every month, every year. Healthcare and insurance goes up. So this limited budget gets chipped away and chipped away and chipped away. So even though we have the best intentions to have dollars to take care of some of these things, it's just like our own budgets at home. Sometimes we say, well, guess what? I'm not going to buy a new pair of shoes right now, and I'm going to have these with a little hole in them because I have to pay for something else. I got to go to the doctor, and I've got to have the dollars to do that. And that's what happens in education, and it's unfortunate. And that's why then we have a relief mechanism for a bond. We're not proud of it. I can tell you every time I've done a bond initiative, it hasn't been a proud thing to be able to say that, gosh, I need to go ask the community for money. But you know what? Our kids deserve it. And this is an investment in our children's future. And that's what we have to remember, that we're making sure everything we do, we're giving the best opportunities and the best facilities, because at the end of the day, facilities make a difference in the impact. The teacher is the number one. Parent involvement is number two. And the condition of our facilities is number three in the educational outcome of our children. So we've got to make sure we invest in our kids, and that takes dollars.
In regards to the maintenance, I know in the past, finance and facilities has come to us in regards to the amount of money that needs to be put in budgeted, right? I mean, because realistically, we do not put the amount of money that we need to in our M&O to actually deal with the maintenance issues, because we focus more on whether it's, paying our salaries is pretty much what 90-something% of our budget. So that's where the focus goes on. And so a lot of the times that's what ends up happening in regards to a lot of the maintenance. But is there like a best practice, a percentage of what's your overall budget? I know they've gotten that and looking at ways to deal with some of those issues throughout the years, so that way deferred maintenance when our next bond program, we actually minimize that and then we can focus more on future projects. Is there something that we're looking at in regards to that?
Yes, there is. And in fact, you may recall that several years ago we went through another facilities master plan, and the outcome, one of the deliverables was the facilities assessment. And so we've been using, over the years, we have been using that document as a way for us to, okay, what are some of our priorities? And so that's how we've been able to complete some, I would say, bigger ticket items over the last couple of years. And so, yes, there is always a strategic outlook as to how is it that we're going to face the challenges of the new fiscal year. Yesterday or the day before, when I opened my dashboard, when I see all the money, I said, "Hey, Happy New Year!" But I know that some of that money is already not spent. It will be spent. So.
And the other, I have two comments or concerns. One is the multi-purpose buildings at our 5 elementary schools. I mean, I would love to utilize that, but if we have less than capacity at some of these campuses, I think addressing more of the safety and security issues, maybe the rock wall. I know within some of the we're starting to see a lot more development, especially around some of the campuses where those rock walls can be, and maybe hopefully partner with whoever is building. But I think it's important for us to look at that instead of adding more if those campuses are underutilized. So that's one the thought. And the other is in regards to the new elementary school or the new middle school, and or both. I take my mom to dialysis Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and coming out just right out of that dialysis, I don't know if you've seen, but it's completely being, what is it? The dirt work is actually taking place. And another safety and security issue is building an elementary school on that site, because once that builds out, I mean, moving, all the way to having them either go to Reyes or Gunner Field, I think that would be one of the new elementary schools as we see those build out. So that's something to look at when you all discuss this as so those are the two areas that I think overall the information we've gotten, the quality of the information and the feedback, we really appreciate it. But those are the two areas in regards to elementary school.
Thank you. And I guess, from the committee perspective, from our perspective, is that we want to make sure we're in the ballpark. But again, that we don't want to go back saying, no, the board want option Z. We just have C. As you can tell, again, this committee has worked very hard on long hours, long days, hot sun. What I hear from Searles is, hey, let's not spend 187, less than 160. Just do, Scarlett wants to make sure, can we be more inclusive of disabled or special ed kids? Everything has a cost. Nothing in life is free. Mr. Bayan talking about safety. Sure that our safety, but however, sure that if we do something with CTE, that it is grant. It does bring district. It becomes an epic center of CTE. Mr. Board President, talking right now.
Well, let me tell you, I'll give you my take on these, how we need to take a look at this. The issue of, to address your question about deferred maintenance, and deferred maintenance sometimes is not what you think is deferred maintenance. It's aging, like Dr. Peterson said. Take a look at your home, your own home. You do every single maintenance to your home? Does everybody do it right when it needs to be done, or your car, or your body? We know that because what are the pressures? The financial pressures. What do we as a board first look at every single year when Mr. Parsky and Mr. Ross come up to us? What are we going to do about our teachers and our staff? That's our first priority because it's 85% of our budget. 85% of our budget. So even if we want to spend more money on all this maintenance. It's just not there. It's not that we can't plan for it. Yeah, planning is easy. Is where are you gonna need the money for those big ticket items that are maintenance? You know, not all of it is little maintenance. Some of it is a lot of maintenance. You know, the committee doesn't want to spend money on that Lone Star building, and it's probably the one that's got the most needs in terms of maintenance. So we need to take a look at that in terms of what are the future of we want in our facilities. Right now, we're just talking about facilities, okay? When you're talking about maintenance, that's the M&O side. That's the maintenance and operations. How much money do you have, Bruno?
For my operating budget?
Just for maintenance?
So
your operating budget, you know, forget about the 85% we spend in salaries. What do we have left? Because, you know, salaries doesn't include utilities, all the other stuff, right? Supplies, all of that stuff. What do you actually have for maintenance for each campus?
Yeah, so it's roughly around $500,000. The money that I know that I can use for, you know, buying materials or twisting knobs or swinging hammers.
Right, for the entire district?
Yes.
Okay, and how many campuses and how many places do we have?
13.
13. So when you divide that out, how much do you have for the entire campus?
Wow, I'm a good architect, but I'm terrible at math in my head. I need pen and paper. But yes, so we.
The way I look at it, it's a lot less than 50,000 per campus, right? For, you know, and that's not including administration. It's not including facilities, right?
Oh no, facilities is one of the 13 campuses. But what I was going to say is that I would never in my life divide. You say, you know, this amount of money divided by 13. This is what you get. No, because that's not.
No, I understand that. I'm just trying to get an idea of what it is that we have to spend on this maintenance, and then, you know, and take supplies and stuff out of that. It's a lot less left, right? So you want to do maintenance on a roof? That's going to be pretty expensive, right? When do we ever have the money to do that out of our M&O budget? Yeah. So it's not an issue of we don't do it, we don't want to plan for it.
No, and that's not what I was saying. I was asking what can we as a district, as a board, do to put more money in Bruno's pocket to help him work with? That was my question.
You know, and that's the tough thing that we have to go through every single year because, you know, I don't know if you've been to some of our most recent board meetings where we've been yelled at by some of our teachers that we're not giving them enough money. I mean, literally yelling at us, right? Y'all hear it? They're literally yelling at us because we don't give them enough money, and we don't give enough money out of that ESSER fund. Did you all hear it? You know, literally yelling at us and telling us we're corrupt because we don't give them more money. And I'm not exaggerating. That's what we did put through. And so what I'm saying is we are trying to do the best job we can. And we appreciate the committee involvement because we need it. We don't, you know, imagine if it was just us having out there to do the, you know, involvement and do that. You know, it's tough. And we want involvement because this is money coming from the community, not just, you know, the entire community. We want that say-so. And we appreciate that. But like Mr. Peterson, Dr. Peterson said, is there's other factors that are tugging at administration. A lot of, you know, and the first and foremost is, you know, our salaries for our personnel, their health care, and that goes up. How many times does it not go up, guys? It's a tough thing to do, to sit up here and say, hey, we're not going to, you know, divert money over here because we got to do this here, and we try to take care of our teachers because that's the first thing that impacts our kids.
I'm going to tell you, as a teacher, you do a great job of taking care of us, and I don't think anybody would question that. I am going to be bold enough to say, though, that I think that there are some things that we can do to cut and to be more fiscally responsible in certain aspects. And I think we as a community would be more than happy to have those discussions. You know, we talk about workshops and different things that we can do. Maybe those are some discussions that we need to have so that you can represent us as your community. I know that your jobs are extremely hard, and I thank you for that. I know sitting up there and hearing the things that you guys have to hear month after month is not easy. I'm going to tell you that. But to be completely transparent, I guess, in what I'm trying to say, I know Dr. Rossi did bring this up slightly. One of the things that the community or the committee as a whole brought up many, many times was the transparency in regards to how the money was going to be spent if the bond is passed. That's a concern that your community has, and one of the reasons for that concern is, and I don't want to bring up the past because I know some of you weren't here at the last bond. I know Dr. Galavis was not, here at the beginning of that. But there were a lot of things on that bond that did not get completed, and one of those things is the elementary school roof where my daughter attends. And so that's our concern. That's our concern in regards to how can we put $187.5 million in the hands and make sure that the stuff that we are going out and selling to the community that we're saying is going to get done actually gets done. And during our legal meeting, we were told that the only way that it can be held accountable, this is my understanding, is if the election, the ballot, is completely transparent in regards to the things that we plan on doing, because that's our legal accountability, that we said that these things were going to be done with that money. So that's my second question that I came up with is, how can we tell our community that the board is going to be transparent on the ballot, that these are the things that are going to get done so that the money is spent and the projects get completed?
Well, and that's something that we're gonna have to work out with our bond counsel, our attorney, our staff, our finance people, and there's ways to do that. The other issue is we also don't want to be so specific that it doesn't give us flexibility.
And I understand that completely.
And a bond of this size, anytime we go out of bond, we need some flexibility because, we might say one thing, if we had planned for this bond 2 years ago and passed it and try to build the same thing with what with the cost we have now of lumber when it's 300%.
And I understand that. And so
that's going to be some issues.
And why I wanted to come up and state this to you, because these are two main concerns that were consistently brought up meeting after meeting, that you as a board need to be aware of, that your community is concerned about. And so that's why I wanted to address that.
Communicate. We understand that, and all of us, we really take it to heart that we have to promise what we're going to do and then do it. It's not an easy thing when some projects, you end up going overboard because you can't plan 2-3 years ahead very, very precisely. This is really difficult. Dr. Peterson, many of the projects that you've ever projected, Bruno, that have always come up over budget for whatever reasons.
And that's where you try to balance it. Sometimes you have things that come in under budget, you get lucky. Other times they are over budget, and you balance the two of them to stretch those dollars. And I think the key is, as you do your language, is you put in there that you're going to have dollars for renovating and upgrading existing facilities with an amount, so that people know you are spending those specific dollars for renovating and upgrading. And then you're going to spend dollars for additional additions or whatever it is. And so, but you do need that flexibility, because none of us could have predicted the last year and a half, and none of us want to relive the last year and a half.
That's for sure.
That's for sure. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We appreciate the time. Now you get a little taste of what we have to deal with, and all you're talking about is just what the future needs of this bond and facility. We have to deal with other pressing issues. And, this is 187 million people, guys that we're talking about. It's really not 187 million because we've already spent 10 million of it. It's only 177. You know that, right? Right? Because we got to pay that 10 million back that we spent the laptops and for the connectivity and technology. So that's part of that 187.5 million. So we're talking about stuff that we're gonna do is only 177 million. And the less we cut from these, you know, from what we have to do in maintenance and stuff to repair and whatever, the more then it goes into the future and the more it's gonna cost. Because if you don't fix a roof, you know, it's not just gonna be the roof you need to fix. You know, you're gonna end up having to fix the inside of it because it messed it up. And if you didn't do it, it's only gonna get worse. And it's not gonna get cheaper. So with this thing about saying, oh, we need to cut down, no, we need to put priority on what we need to do in terms of maintenance and get it done, because otherwise it's just gonna cost us more. If you look at it in your own household, in your own whatever you have, if you don't do that, it's gonna end up costing you more. Whether by inflation or because the damage is getting much greater and it's just doing more damage and you end up with a higher cost. And then you add inflation to it, and guess what? You know, so what we need to do is we need to fix whatever we need to fix. And we need to stretch the dollars as much as we can. And, you know, with respect to what the committee, you know, appreciate this is a really good sense of what our community is by getting these dots. But I think what we need to do is have the committee do some more work, because with the way I see it, we have 2 middle schools that are not at capacity. And yet the committee seems to think that it's a good idea for a middle school, but not an elementary school. And we don't want to spend money on a new elementary school because we also have some elementary schools that aren't at capacity. Well, that's where we want that input, you know? And I don't know that it's gonna be completely option A, you know? That maybe we got something from B and something from A that we need to synthesize, you know? And I don't know, that this is where we need input from the community. We have 2 middle schools that are about 50 to 60% capacity. What are we gonna do? And yet, you know, y'all are telling us that we need one on the other side and we don't have one. You know, it doesn't make sense to build a 3rd middle school, but we need it. But maybe we can get rid of one and synthesize it, put one over there, borrow some of the kids from one of these middle schools and ship them out there. I don't know, that's where we want some input. That's where we want that's the hard choice. How are we gonna do that? We have capacity, we just don't have it in the right place. And one of those, you know, both of those middle schools aren't exactly new either. You know, they need a lot of work to realize that. It's a tough decision to do. And it's something that we wanted to last for the next, at least, you know, 20 years. It's tough to do, right? We've averaged a bond probably every 10 years or so. And it's hard to plan for 5 years, you know? Much less 10 or 20. So, but we do need that input from, you know, nobody wants to spend money on the Lone Star building. Yeah, it's an old building, but what do we do with it? I'll be with you just a minute, Mr. These are hard questions. Over the last several years, you know, the safety issues come up. Not just in terms of health issues for safety, but actual physical safety for our kids. You know, there's no dollars in the specific dollars that are earmarked from our government for that. You know, there's a lot of things tugging, and every time, you know, something happens in the area of safety or health, you know, we just don't get that enough money to be able to plan and deal with those completely. Federal government gave us money during the pandemic. Guess what the state did? Took it out of our budget and said, here's this federal money that we got. And you know, we didn't get a cent out of it first, right? Did we? Pekarsky, how much did we get out of that first one? 0, right? So there's a lot of things that that are tugging, and we're not like commissioners court or the legislature that, you know, they can do whatever they want. No big deal. They can pass bonds and stuff without voter approval. No biggie. You know, the city, the county, we can't do that. You know, because we're very limited, and it's just we have to do the best we can. But we want the community involved. We thank the community and the committee for the time. It's not easy and it takes time. You know, so we appreciate that. I think we have some work to do, and we thank you. The committee, I think we need some more work. Our staff, you know, how do we synthesize these two options? And I think in terms of the ballpark, I mean, we actually have a need of over 200 or something like that, right? I'm trying to cut it down. I don't know that we can cut anything else down that's, you know, how much of it is deferred, you know, in terms of not necessarily deferred maintenance, but just maintenance issues and repairs that we gotta do, or fix things, or add things to existing buildings. That's the majority of it, isn't it? But that's something that we really, you know, we're saying it's high in the sky stuff. So the CTE program, that's probably number one on a lot of everybody's list. I know it's on mine. You know, when we talk about accountability, you know, what are we doing for these kids? You know, and I want to scrap the accountability the state has. Let's get our kids some certifications, some licensing, some associate's degrees. How about that? For a bang for our buck. So this is going to tell us what the future, this community wants in terms of the future for our students. And for me, the highest priority to me is obviously the career in technology. Our early college, high school, probably spend less on their facilities than any other campus. Need to give them some kind of a, you know. So it's a tough thing we have to do, but thank the committee for their time. We've got more work to do, and if we're gonna try and, you know, my position is I think we ought to try and call this bond as soon as we can, because, you know, these interest rates are gonna start rising on these bonds very quickly here coming up. I think we ought to just, you know, let's get this solidified and get a good idea of where we're at. Let's go out for the bond quickly, because the longer we wait, the more it's going to cost us, folks. You know, if our interest rates on these bonds raised by 1%, man, that's going to cut down on the money we're going to have available, because we're just going to have to pay it more back. That's a lot of money. I frankly would rather not. I'd rather buy, you know, on 2% for 3% interest than 4% interest. And so, and we have a time factor here also that we have to take in mind. So, with that, I think, you know, my position is, I think we're clearly in the ballpark for this. I think we just need work on synthesizing these two options. And the elementary middle school issue we need to resolve. I think everybody's pretty much on board with CTE and where we need to do that. And I think the tough job is going to be the elementary and middle school issue. So with that, that's where I'm standing. Anybody else on the board? Mr. Earls, I know you.
I did. Mr. Coronado, you brought up a really important fact in that 10 million of it, we really haven't had maintenance. But also, and I asked for this, thank you, Bruno, for the update. We've done some major things on here, and I'm looking at resurface the track at the high school, $550,000. Done.
Well, it's ongoing. We haven't begun the project, but it's already.
Yeah, it's already budgeted for. All the marquees in all the schools, done, budgeted for, paid for. These things need to come out, and that provides the transparency. We need to see a realistic, and I'm sorry, I found this. Okay, sorry. We need to see a realistic, I guess, number. Instead of inflating the numbers, you know, we've already done a lot of stuff. Because I just said the track at the high school, the track at the middle school, the signs, there's a lot of money there. $10 million. Yes, I asked for that.
775,000 is what you're talking about.
But there's more than that. That doesn't include the resurfacing of the tracks by the high school. Does it?
So
But at any
remember,
rate, what I'm saying is it would be very pleasing to see. But, yeah, a little more, where we're really at, and
yeah, and that is where I spend most of my sleepless nights because we're putting ourselves on the line. If we tell you, and this happens all the time. It's the nature of my job. When I come to Ms. Vikarski's office and I said, hey, I need money for such and such. The first thing she asks me is, how much is it going to cost? And my first answer most of the time is, I don't know. This is the crystal ball game that we have to play. And so a very important thing that we are considering as part of this proposed bond is to have the flexibility of having contingency funds. Because not only are we following, like Mr. Rodriguez said, best practices, but we're also following lessons learned. So, speaking about how we've approached this new bond, a very important item. A very important item is making sure that we don't under budget for these projects.
so what I'm hearing, we just leave all this in and it gives you a pattern.
Not necessarily leave everything in, but having a contingency fund.
So then maybe it could be, because these shouldn't be in here, honestly, Bruno, that, we've done for big dollars.
Oh, yes, yes.
That these have all been done, so now all this money's gonna be our contingency.
Right.
Or something, whatever, but it needs to be clear, because people are gonna look at this and instantly you see, done.
Absolutely, and that is why at this point, this is just an overview of everything that we've done for the last year and through everything that we've done. So by no means this is the final recommendation. So yes.
And there are a lot of things in here too that come out of day-to-day M&O.
Yes.
That we don't do anything.
That is true also.
That's correct.
Every
so, the scale just tipped a little more.
I agree.
I thank you. Then maybe we could see some revised numbers, because Dr. Galvez, it's not so much about the 187 million. It's about what these people are saying. Are we going to spend it properly? Are we going to be accountable? And if we start out with more than, or something different than what we're presented, well, we just cross that off already. We aren't accountable because it's already done. I just like to, start off on footing that we understand. If it's contingency, sure. As long as you tell us that,
yes.
That's what that's for. We're taking it out and we're going to put it somewhere else. So thank you, Mr. Coronado, for bringing that up. It's very valid. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, we're still a work in process. We're nowhere near how we're finished. But I think what administration and our professionals want to know is this the ballpark we're looking at? I think it is. Obviously, there's even more need than that. We just need to finalize these and synthesize these options, and let's get the priorities and let's get the community's input on, how we synthesize these options.
May I, just a moment, Mr. Canal, real quick, please?
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to, Bernardo Morella, I just wanted to add, the community wanted your input so we could melt something to plan together. Because the community doesn't want to vote on this because it's passed. We thank you for your input, but we want to know what you want also. And then, so we can put it together, come up with a plan, and see if the parents are gonna be able to push it out to the community. So any input that, you guys give, please give us, because we need it, or else what you're talking about, Mr. Cornell, you said, you don't think elementary school's a good idea, or middle school's a bad idea. Well, we need that input so we can come up with a solid plan. And I hope if anyone has any more input, to give it to our professionals, and so it can be given to the parents and the committee, so we can do something about that. Because we want this to work, but it's just the past is what's hurting the community. And we're trying to put something together so we can get the community involved. And if nobody, I don't know if I'm going back this up, but I want to say thank you for voting, coming back and voting on the electronics, because that saved kind of chill when COVID hit, and that was great. And I want to say thank you for coming back and voting on it, because that saved our bacon, really. If we didn't vote on that, those electronics we would have had, we would have been parents with pitchforks and axes, I'm sure. So thank you for providing that.
Well, we knew that we needed to act quickly with respect to that. Thank you. And you know what? The results that presented to us last meeting, the administration, on where we're at in the entire region after COVID, I think speaks highly about what we did as a board to make sure that our kids were on track.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. But what it says, Mr.
Barella?
Barella, it's a good idea that we could get together as a trustee. We come together with an idea to provide, our priorities. Maybe we could have an agenda item together.
Early next month.
There you go. So we can have that.
I'm into a theater near you.
Thank you.
So I would just like to first start by thanking all the committee for going through that hard work. So first things first, this is not final, but it's a living document, right? It is. And I appreciate the willingness to work with us, as the board to get our input and so we can work together. And on that note, in regards to the sticker system, because I really like this, the little stickers you gave us. However, I'm a little confused on the clarity of it, just because it's from my understanding there's about like 40 committee members, right? Or am I misspoken about 40? However, when I was counting the number of stickers, there's only a certain amount. There's like 37 on the first one. There's 50 something on the last one, right? So I just want to know like what the sticker system, like how it works, just because, like for example, on option A, on the new elementary schools, there's 5 red stickers on it, but is that in comparison to the 35 other? Does that make sense what I'm saying? That's 35 people saying it's go, or?
No, we didn't do it on individual items, and so people had multiple stickers. They had multiple red and multiple green. I think it was 4 each. 4 red and 4 green. And they didn't have to put them on a certain, they could put them all on A, or all, some on A, B, and C. So we didn't dictate to them, and so it's a little bit hard to interpret, which we're struggling with as well, which is why we've got to get back together with the committee.
Okay. So just on any future, because it's gonna come back to us, right? Can we get a more comprehensive list? Maybe, I don't know if this is too excessive, but like a line list on what everyone likes, what they don't like, just because. And in my opinion, the committee is speaking as a voice for the community. And I think that's important for us to understand as a board, is that that's the reason that they're here, right? I think that's real important. I think this is really good, just so us as the board can gauge where everyone's interest in what they think is best for the students, right? And then on that, a second note, is there a time frame on which it's going to come back to us again for the next update, or even just voting on it?
August 10th.
August 10th.
Whether to go for, at some point we gotta go. And August 10th, we're gonna go back to the committee, and at the end of July 28th, give them your input. And then August 10th, we're gonna come back
So we're getting another update before the August 10th when we vote on it, or no?
You're gonna get the update August 10th. Probably some, during the board packet. But again, this is the bulk of it. And August 10th, whether you vote whether to go for an election, a bond, and for November, or you don't.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
So I think, I think the board needs to have a meeting here. For that thing, once we do that, thing, kind of get together, the big issue, guys, that I think we need is, that the middle school, the way I look at it, that's about 20 to 25% of the entire budget of this bond. Actually, it is, if you take out those 10 million we've already spent, it's exactly 25%. We really need to give some guidance as a board on that issue. For me, that's the biggie there. CTE is easy because everybody wants it, we need it, we want it, our kids need it, deserve it. It's this middle school is a tough issue together. So as a board, I think we need to give that.
We'll plan something the first week in August.
Yeah.
Well, Sonia, can you make sure we hold the board tomorrow morning?
Yes, sir, I will.
First of August.
And to confirm, it would be a workshop regarding the direction of,
Yeah, by that time we'll have the committees, and I think for me, I like workshops on the ground. Then we can sit around and talk, up here, more of a, we'll talk tomorrow.
yes, sir, thank you.
Okay.
Well, and every time Mr. Coronado brings up organizing things, it looks like you're wearing a dress tonight. Mr. Coronado, and I've been leading up to it.
I like dresses. Yes, ma'am, you had a comment. Please come on.
Hi, my name is Kendra Smith, and I'm on part of the Justice for Kids Committee, and I told Alexis, Dr. Rossi, that she should speak up again, and she told me I had to, so.
You heard from me already.
She's much more eloquent than I am, and she's a better speaker than I am, but the long and short of it, my concern is we have been over these options, and the discussion was heated at best about it. And the dot thing, we each got 3 dots, and so it's hard to I really love, this is what I really love, this is what I really hate, and we haven't had a chance to meet since then. So maybe presenting our thoughts to you today wasn't the best idea because we really don't have much of a consensus at all. And it's summer, so a lot of people are gone, and they don't have, it's a short summer, so a lot of people are gone. So my concern is we've already been presented, these are kind of our options. So if you all decide to get together and then come back on August, whatever the date is, when you're voting on it, that doesn't give us any opportunity at all to discuss your wants. And to be honest, I feel like you guys work for us. You need to listen to what the community wants. And sure, you're a part of the community too, and you probably have a much bigger picture idea than I do as just a mom and a community member. But this all feels a little rushed. And if you're gonna come to us in August and say, this is what we want, well, ship's passed, it's going, we've left the harbor, So that's a big concern of mine, that if you guys have input, we needed it a month ago, or we need it by our next meeting, which is, I think, next week, or yesterday. Yeah, we needed it a while ago. So that's kind of my concern, and maybe you can alleviate some of that concern. I don't know, but that's my concern.
And to add to that, we have been taking notes. So Dr. G did a great job of summarizing each of your priority points, and we have that as well, and we'll be happy to share that with the rest of the committee as we debrief this exercise and make some final recommendations to the board. So I do want you to know that your voice will be heard and shared, but we would like an opportunity to come to a consensus and present that consensus to the board before the board makes a final decision.
Also, I'm sorry, Mr. Cordo, we do have detailed information for this, the board member, where it's categorized by option A, option B. I don't know, I've seen it in the slideshow if anybody will work the slides. What do you want? Because yesterday there was a community meeting, and it was a detailed,
This,
yes. I'm not sure if this is what you're asking for. This is of the options of the green stickers and the red stickers that you had. If you could go back to.
sure.
See how the options A and B? And this is all included in every option. And if there's one's missing, it's because it's not included in that option. So here's the detailed information that you're asking for, that you can look with the community without the dots, because it is a little confusing, but if you get this information, it's gonna better tell you what the community, the teachers, and administration want. So this information probably should be provided to the board, which would probably be great help.
We do have, which slide is it on?
Slide, it starts on slide number 39, 38, 39, 48, 40.
And again, we have not debriefed this. So again, as was mentioned a couple of times, while these numbers are important, both the dots and these numbers are important to see, it does not necessarily represent how the committee overall feels in terms of a consensus, because there were, as was mentioned, different ways that the dots are utilized. Sometimes people put them on the full option, sometimes people put them on individual items, and we wanted to go back through and, as discussed yesterday, debrief how people voted, why they voted, and talk about those contextual factors of things like what's already been completed facility-wise, what that means in terms of additional money or not, but also things like, okay, so if we go for a wing for Reyes instead of a new school, that would change money around and could potentially bring the bond total down, etc. So we would just need a little bit more time to debrief and then show you more what these numbers actually mean, because in our meeting yesterday, we came up with the same questions that you all did.
May I go back with Mr. Rossi? If you go back to the dots, please, to the dots line. Like they mentioned, the top dots is what for the whole plan we're assuming. This is and if you go to B, please, this is what the community administration teachers thinking, and C, please. And also, so if you put those two together, you can start making a picture. Like as Dr. Rossi is saying, yes, that's true, but for the board to get a picture of what's going on, this is why I'm saying, like, she speaks so eloquent, I just speak the way. But if you put those two things together, you'll start to find a picture of what the community, administration, and teachers want.
But we don't have these.
Yes, we do. Yes.
We do at the beginning, yes.
Was that a handout?
The dots?
I didn't get the
They were given 2
The dots?
weeks ago, it happened. The binder was provided before the June 29th meeting. But the
Did
dots
we
were
get
provided.
the dots or?
I didn't get any of these dots, I have none of.
We'll get you a dot.
I believe it was a hand. It might be a handout, I'm sure.
Just, Mr. Chair, just 2 quick points. One is the 2011 bond program and previously, and this is, I don't want history to repeat itself, but what has happened many times is, here's the bond amount, 18, it was 60 million, and then it's like, you know what, we need to break it down to 40 million, but yet they kept all the bonds projects on there. And so that's part of the trust issue and the miscommunication, so I don't want that to repeat itself, and that has happened twice. And it has compounded the problem, and so that's one issue, and I think it's important for us to have that alignment in regards to some of the concerns that were brought up, and just being able to look at that, and hopefully we'll have that next meeting to work it out before the actual meeting. Thank you all for your time.
Good point, Mr. Rodriguez, is that when we settled on the 2011 bond issue, we actually came back down from what the original projection for the bond was, but then all the projects still kept in there. So the community may think, well, you promised us all of this, but at the end, we were given a lower number. So, we have to work with things. So,
Since you will be talking about
what you like in regards to ideas. I wanted to throw something out at you that I mentioned at the last meeting when we were talking about, do we need a middle school, do we need an elementary school? I brought the idea that I basically came with from East Texas. In East Texas, they have, in a lot of schools, they have a primary campus and an elementary campus. So primary is pre-K through 2, and elementary is 3 through 5. And so instead of building a brand new campus, if we are going to build a middle school that can house students from Alderete and any future students that are coming in on the other side of the freeway, then we could make Alderete Middle School, instead of a 9th grade building, because we have a lot of disagreement on that at the committee. Instead of making it the 9th grade center, we could basically build a wing between K-2 Elementary School to connect it to Alderete, because they're right there basically on the same property, and make K-2 Elementary School the primary, so we have more room to grow in that building then. And then then Alderete would become the elementary school, 3 through 5, and we have more room to grow in both buildings. So we don't need a new elementary school if we do that.
As far as you must have been reading, Ms. Rocha, our mind yesterday.
Yes?
We were talking about that.
Yeah, because I brought it up at the last meeting, and there were a lot of people saying, well, that's a really good idea, but I don't know if everybody heard it. But that would basically get rid of the need for a new elementary school, because we would have room to grow in both buildings, both pre-K through 2 and 3 through 5. And then if we build a middle school that can house the students from Alderete, bigger than Alderete, then we have room to grow in that building as well. And it's on the other side of the freeway. So we basically get rid of, I think one of the plans, a new elementary school is $20 million. So the renovations are already supposed to be happening in Alderete. So if we do those renovations and build a connection or not build a connection, frankly, you don't have to have one. But it would be there for growth in both buildings. We wouldn't need a new elementary school. So,
Mr. Chair, I question the need for a new elementary school or a new middle school. We have Davenport and Childress are at very low capacity.
Not even 50%.
Right. And so it seems like we need to, do some thinking on that. And our middle schools are huge. We don't really need another middle school either. And we've just done a lot of improvements. New track.
Yes.
To each of those schools. And I also think those are community schools. Everybody likes them. People do. They like our community schools.
Well, I think.
And so I see an issue that we've got 2 empty middle schools, 2 not quite, or 2 empty elementary schools, 2 not quite full middle schools. That why would we build either of those new?
And those are concerns that come up as well.
Yeah, and it seems like that might be the further down the road, the next 5 years, 10 years, whatever, to do that based upon the enrollment that we've seen. Our enrollment's not going to go up that much from what is in this document. That nobody's showing us we're going to get 15,000 new kids. So I think that's something that's really important that we do take into consideration on build new. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Bayard.
And I just want to, on that line, Ms. Rose, I just want to, everybody says Bill Childress is empty, half empty right now. And I just want you to bring up that I'm part of the planning and zoning in Benton. There's an immense amount of people moving into Benton because of the new water and wastewater infrastructure going in. There's applications for Tropicana homes already building, I think something like 60, 70 units. There's another addition going up along Kylie Road. We've got another Planning and Zoning Commission meeting on August for another application for additional housing. So I don't know, Ms. Rocha, if you can get projections as to what the future growth is there in Benton, because the water and wastewater infrastructure is going to grow Benton tremendously. And I just want to say that, up front, because everybody's saying Childress is half empty. It is, and it's going to fill up. I don't know to what extent.
And it is, and thank God it will. It's a wonderful school. But even with all those applications, Mr. Brown, they need a build out period. You know, and that may be, what I'm saying is I think Childress will end up being able to be filled in, Davenport filled into capacity. And personally, I like them being low because you get better student-teacher ratio. That's, you know, I'm
That's
sorry, I
good.
know that's not good finance, but I like it.
Can I ask one more question? Yes, sir. You were saying that there's a lot of conflict over the ninth grade center. Can you elaborate a little bit on that, Dr. Rodriguez?
I don't, you know, when you have a committee, like the board, you have an idea there. So that, in my opinion, you have a minor opinion about the ninth grade center. You have an opinion, right? A perspective. But so when you have a committee that large, you have different perspectives. I want a new elementary school. I don't want one. I want this, I want that. So you're trying to synthesize all these ideas to one. Kind of like you seven have different ideas. and so, you know, and now, again, as Ms. Barnes brought another idea, now we're gonna take that idea, again, and we're trying to synthesize in order to, again, to be, so we have that, a guarantee about a commitment, a word of honor. And I know, looking at the research regarding ninth grade centers, is it good for kids? Now you're looking at another transition, right? So they move fifth grade, sixth grade, fifth grade to sixth, seventh to eighth, eighth to ninth, ninth to tenth. Research, but there's, I know Franklin does it, they have a ninth grade center. So, again, a lot of ideas that we're taking different opinions, but again, I don't want to take, because somebody, or someone, or a committee, or I don't want to take any idea as bad. So we want to build, want to synthesize what's best for county.
All right, to that, sounds like we need a more urgent board meeting than August, right, guys? So, I can see you, and I can, I guess, give the tomorrow, and let's pull the board, present, something to pull the board about having these next week. They got guys, okay?
But don't they need to hash out their stuff before they give it back to us?
Yeah, they want our input on this before they meet, right? Well,
Yes, sir.
am I
Yes,
wrong?
we would like it because, like Ms. Ross has said, that this stuff's not set in stone. So we're trying to consolidate it to, let's say, a Plan D, where everything that the parents, administration, and teachers want are in that plan, and whatever the board wants, and then we could kind of.
But I would disagree.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
think that we've already gotten some of the feedback of the priorities, and unless what you already spoke about is vastly different from what you would decide from there, I don't know that we need that before we meet again at this point.
You guys sound like board members.
I would disagree with that because the parent just spoke that she needs more information on the things that.
I don't think that's what I'm saying.
Oh, I apologize. That's how I took it. Now let me apologize. Well, let me say, the community needs more information, and we're trying to work with the board because of the past bond, and we're trying to we want to show goodwill, and we need some goodwill. And also let me mention, I think we pay off one bond in 5 years, so we don't necessarily always have to get everything we need. I don't know, am I right? 5 years we pay off one?
I'm not sure where you get that.
From the 2000, the lowest year bond, I thought it was going to be 5 years. 5 years. Well, maybe I'm wrong. But I was thinking there was 5 years that we have to pay bond. Let's just scratch that. But the parents, the community needs that information. We would like it because I can't go out and tell my community to vote for this. It's going to burn my goodwill, and I live in a closed community, and I'll never be invited to a backyard party.
So maybe we can do two things. One, meet next week, gather the input, give it back to the committee, and then afterwards, we meet again before August 10th.
Yes.
So that way, we have
Everybody. Well,
Everybody.
wouldn't this be our platform though, for us to say what we want in the bond? If we've gone through it, we know what we want, like you already synthesized every one of our points. I think this would be our stage if we want to add something that's not in it. Wouldn't this be our stage so we don't have to have another one? I think I personally, I think just the next one would be, now that we've given our input here on today's board meeting, and if you have more input, like we can add it right now, you know? But just, they already have it, let them synthesize it, do their thing, and then I think they'll meet again and discuss that, not gather our info again, because I think that's already what we're doing. I think it's redundant, in my opinion.
I would recommend they meet, they've gotten some of our info, meet, synthesize, come back to us, and if we do a partnership, right? Then we could do that to have that discussion and then finalize it in that August first week.
That's fine, however we want to do it, but on the big issue, that really, I don't know that we've got everybody on the board to input about the middle school. Ms. Rose, you seem to not want to do middle school.
I would like to, of course, for Northwest Early College, do they need a new building? Those kids, on the middle school. I need to see the numbers, but I don't think it's necessary. I don't know.
Mr. Hernandez.
I think the elementary school is more needed on the top left for a middle school, unless we were to completely renovate a bit of it to make that, fit the needs. That's just my input. Completely curb appeal, make it a beautiful middle school, and then, if not, and then build the elementary school.
Yeah, I don't think we need it. I don't think we need it. I think we don't need it in terms of capacity. No. But that's the issue. The issue is, are we gonna sink more money in a middle school? Or do we transform it into something else, like the ideas are either a language center or PK through whatever, and build the other middle school. And we're not talking about 3 middle schools, we're still talking about 2 middle schools. The issue is which 2 middle schools do we have? That's the issue. Whether it's on the CMS or a new one on the other side and transform the other one into something else.
Middle schools are much more expensive than elementary.
I hear you, but that's the whole deal is what do you do, because, we, in this plan for the middle school, we're talking about sinking almost 4 million into other head. I mean, are we gonna get the bang for a buck for a middle school, or do we build a new one and transform that one into something else? That's the issue I see.
You've got that beautiful new gym, new track.
That would be great for an elementary school too.
Yes, it would.
Very young.
Yeah. What's there right now is not a complete middle school.
So, Mr. Chair, Dr. Galavis, what would be the options we have as the board to discuss, and I guess the next steps before and is the August 10th board meeting to vote on, is that set in stone? Okay. So what are the options we have now then? Because I know, I think this is our platform. If we want to talk about anything that needs to be added is here. I don't know if anyone else feels differently, but I guess what would be the options we have to move forward with this?
Well, the options are to meet next week and sit down and talk about why, because you want to know why, right? Because if we're looking at Reyes is overcrowded, it's 112% capacity. So if you build that middle school over on by Abundant, that has nothing to do with grants. It's all those kids going to. That's why instead of building elementary, we asked a wing, a $4 million cost rental. So again, those are decisions that we have. So again, next week, we have described all your thoughts even about the middle school, back to the committee, and hash it out, talk it out together, and week after July 28th. And again, I prefer more of a shop setting, out there talking versus this thing. Because then you're actually talking. Go ahead, Ms.
Can we
Spence.
make sure the meeting's in person?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Oh, like this?
Just in person, not,
Oh, yeah, it'll be
not
like this.
virtually?
It'll be like this,
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
so I can watch your BB time.
That's right. Be kind to each other.
Right, Dr. Rossi.
Just idea on how to make this efficient would be if we meet on the 28th, given the recommendations and the discussion that's already been had today, and we start to finalize some of those thoughts. If the board was to meet again before the August 10th vote, the spokespeople can meet with you and talk about what we've come to as a conclusion and have a discussion back and forth, come up with something that we all kind of agree on. We bring that back to the committee for a final vote and say, yes, they're willing to work with that. And then on August 10th, that it's just basically formalization of, we've all agreed with this, we've had some discussion, are you for it or against it? And then we go from there. That would be my recommendation on a strategic, efficient way to move
So
forward.
then we're looking at maybe August 5th or August 4th or 5th? At administration, are you guys okay with it?
Serve at the will of the board.
I know that, but you're opening the school that week.
No, we'll be fine with it.
You're okay?
Push it to Thursday.
Yeah? We'll pay you extra.
The only, you probably have to ask the building principals. Those were probably really two that I would probably exclude.
Yeah.
The rest.
Yeah, we don't need, we know what's happening that week, so the principals that need to be, that can't be up, that's fine, we just,
As far as I know, you're gonna be teaching that week, are you gonna be okay?
I just looked at my schedule. My schedule's clear.
so, or then 4th or 5th?
Well, let's, make sure everybody within the first week.
Yeah, okay, let's do that, we'll meet before we make the first week of decision the following week. You okay with that?
What day is it? What day is
Fourth,
the week?
3rd, 4th, or 5th?
Sunday will call us, yes?
Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday?
No, because I'm gonna be out of town that month. What days of the week? It is Monday, Tuesday?
Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday?
Tuesday I won't be here. Wednesday.
Okay.
So, I would just like to clarify, are we just doing one or two meetings? I would like to do
Just one.
Just one.
Yeah.
We have to do one to come to consensus, and then we have to do one to actually vote before, because the law requires us to vote before, so.
On the 28th.
No, hopefully that's just a check-off list.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I gotta go home. I don't feel good. I don't know.
All right.
Excuse me, community, I don't feel good. I shouldn't come to the meeting, but it was very important to me as you as well. I gotta go, please accept my apology.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The time is 8:15 and Ms. Trout is exiting.
Yeah. Okay, we're done, folks. Thank everybody for, I know we thought this meeting was gonna be shorter, but but it's good discussion. Thank you, committee and community for showing up. Staff, administration, everybody, thank you all very much. We appreciate it, and we will see you sometime soon for more discussion on this. Next agenda item, Sonia, is
Item 4, adjournment, and it's 8:15.
by unanimous